The single best lesson I learned from the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Guys, Oz and Mayo rhymes with KO. Where we got to put Mr. Gorgeous at? Where are we going to move? Got to move him out there. I'm not going. So, the single best secret I learned from reading the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and how to use this secret to create a $30K a month passive income. Guys, this book is a pretty big deal. Where are we going to put Mr. Gorgeous? We got to move him off screen. I'm not going to. All right, so this is a very famous book. You guys probably heard of it, Stephen Covey. This is something I had to read. I was a competitive speed reader, as you guys know, in junior high. I talked about this. I was also really good at math, so the girls were all over me. But we'd had to read this book. It was one of the books that we had to read. It was an assigned thing that we had to do, and we had to read books that were well above our punching weight. I read this book, and of course, as a teenager, I was very young, and I was like, oh, I know all this stuff. I thought it was stupid. But even at the time, I was assigned to read this book. I didn't really want to, but despite my thick-headedness, I was silly. I didn't get as much of this from this book as I should have. There's one thing that I picked up, one great idea that even as a kid, I realized it's something pretty big. This book's a big deal. It's over 40 million copies sold. Time magazine named Stephen Covey among the most influential people alive in the 90s, I believe, just like they did me. Copied me, basically. Taking all my ideas. The audiobook version of this book became the first nonfiction audiobook to sell over 1 million copies. Point is, this is a big deal. So what's this lesson today about? This is a 52 tips for real estate investors, by the way. Oz and Mayo rhymes with KO. BigRia.com. Anna, did you guys move where are we putting Mr. Gore? You got to put him somewhere. I won't control it. You guys can. But yeah, move him. We got to put off the screen or something. But if you take this, anyway, my life changed. My son has special needs. We started this project, BigRia.com, to help real estate investors create a passive income of 30 grand a month with real estate investing and business building, buying and selling companies, all with no money down, no credit check, no loans or anything like that. You can get started totally from zero. We're also building the world's largest organization of special needs business owners and real estate investors. So the number one channel for Indiana real estate. Number one, we're also taking over now the Midwest, the number one real estate company in the Midwest. All kinds of great stuff. Go to BigRia.com. This is one of the 52 tips. I don't know which one it is. Did we number it? We're at 52 tips. You're going to get one every week. You want to get them all, go to BigRia.com. You can sign up. Today's is about this lesson from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Here are a couple quotes. See if you can tell what this lesson is about. We are all migrants through time. We are all migrants through time. Think about that. Hamid, time isn't the main thing. It's the only thing. Miles Davis. It really is clear that the most precious resource any of us really has is time. Time is the only capital that any human has and the only thing you can't afford to lose. And then, since we're talking about the big hitters here, Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein. These guys could have been wrong, but Oz and Mayo. The most important question you will ever ask yourself is, how will I spend my time today? And the most important thing you'll ever do with your time, by the way, financially speaking, is commit to a process of creating passive income. So what is today's secret about? It is about time, guys. That's the most important thing. How do we control our time? Now, before we just roll your eyes all time. No, this is really something pretty cool. This is a trick we've used for years. We've built company after company, use this little trick. There's different names for it. There's the Covey time management matrix, the Eisenhower decision matrix, the urgent important grid, and there's different names for it. But basically, here's how it looks. It's a little grid. It looks something like this. So it's a 2x2, right? There are 4 squares. Up here in the top, the columns, you have urgent, and then you have not urgent, okay? Then over here, you have, on the rows, you have important and not important, right? So the question is, you take the things that you have to do with your time and you put them in one of these boxes, right? So we ask people all the time, where should most people spend their time, or where do most people spend their time? We all want to feel superior, so we're all like, well, most people spend their time down here, right? Most people, we would agree, spend their time down here in the LC zone. Not urgent and not important. That's where most people spend their time, right? This is right. Most people do stuff that is not important and it's not urgent. Most people do spend their time there. That's right. However, if we ask people, where should you spend your time? What's the appropriate question for that? What's the answer for that? Where should you, a smart, savvy person, where should you spend your time? Most people say that you should spend your time right here, right? On urgent and important. That's where most people say you should spend your time. That's what I thought when I first read this book. I thought, obviously, you want to spend your time there. But that's not the right answer, actually. That is the incorrect answer. The right answer is that you actually want to spend your time over here in the not urgent but important, because urgent always gets attention. It's getting attention anyway because urgent, right? And one of the things that always happens, a screaming baby always gets fed, right? The reason why you want to focus on things that are not urgent is because the stuff that's urgent gets attention. The screaming baby gets fed, the squeaky wheel gets oiled, the fire always gets put out. The reason why so many people, I've worked with people, I've talked to, I don't know how many thousands of business owners, and the number one thing you hear from people is they say, oh, there's not enough time in the day. The years go by, the weeks go by, the months go by, everything slips by, and they don't feel like they got anything done, right? What did you get done in the last 24 hours that was substantial, a huge step forward for your business? One of the questions we always ask is, what was the record you set this week? Was this week a record week? And for most people, the answer is almost always no, because you're putting out fires all day, because you're focusing on what's urgent. There's a very simple thing you can do to fix that. That is the problem. You'll just be putting out fires all day and you have little to no progress. So what you really want to do is you want to notice you're focused on the right things. You want to focus on things that are not urgent. How do you know that? There are certain things that you can look for. We call them asymmetricals. Remember the asymmetrical apple? I used to work at the Indiana State Fair. Guys would come in, they'd have pumpkins that would barely fit in the back of a pickup truck. They'd have carrots the size of baseball bats. And this one guy had an apple the size of a basketball, right? I asked him one day, how do you do that? I was just curious, like, how do you grow these things that big? And he had this apple the size of a basketball, and he put down a normal apple right next. And he said, if you grow these two apples, you do 95% of everything that you do is the exact same. 95% the same. Even as a teenager, I heard that, I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. 95% is the same. It's that 95%, that very small input that creates a massive output. And that's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on asymmetrical, tiny little inputs. I'm going to give you examples in a second. Tiny little inputs that create a massive output. Then you want to focus on stuff nobody's talking about. Nobody's talking about it at all. It's on nobody's radar. That's what you want to focus on, because those are the things that are not urgent. Now, you want to set the tone, the direction, the focus of your team. And the most important thing for you to do as a leader is to focus on things that are not urgent. Important, but not urgent. Nobody would notice that if you didn't do it. These are 3 ways that we know that we're focusing on the right thing. Number 1, it's an asymmetrical. Tiny input, massive ROI. Disproportionate ROI, right? How can we get an apple the size of a basket? You want to focus on stuff nobody's talking about, and you want to focus on stuff that nobody would notice if you didn't do it. I'm going to give you examples in a second. Like I said, don't focus on stuff that if you didn't do it, nobody would notice. But once you do it, they'll immediately notice. They'll notice the process is different, and they'll notice that they're getting results. They'll notice that the process immediately they'll notice, and they'll notice the results later. That's how you know you're focusing on the right stuff. Putting Mr. Gorgeous back. Did you move him? Too many goals is just as dangerous as having no goal. This is one of the biggest problems that people have, is they've got a bunch of goals, a bunch of problems. You have very limited time. The name of the game here is how can you spend your very limited resources and make the most happen. Remember, winners and losers have the same goals, as we always say. They all wish for the same thing, right? And they want the same exact outcome. What's the difference then? How do we know what the winner's going to get and what the loser doesn't get? It comes down to a few very basic things. Really, your business will never rise to your wish list, what you want, what you wish for. It will always fall to your checklist. Business will never rise to your wish list. It will always fall to your checklist. This is like one of our core mantras here, is that we want to constantly have better and better checklists. The goal is to make sure that when you fall to your checklist, you're still higher than anybody else. So when your business inevitably does fall to that checklist, which is what it will always do, that your checklist is so good that it's better than anybody. Your worst is better than anybody else's better. So this Jim Afremow, he wrote the book, The Champion's Mind. He followed a bunch of different golfers and people around that were, world champions. And he looked at what it was like Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. There was one line from this book that I thought was really interesting. He said, what they do is not just focus on raising their roof, but they focus on making sure that their baseline is better. In other words, they play poorly well. That's what they want to do, that they can be better at their worst day. When you fall to your checklist, bottom your checklist, your base is better than anybody else's height. Make your prior best your new baseline. This is Josh Waitzkin, the book, Searching for Bobby Fischer. He's a chess prodigy. And The Art of Learning, he talks about this idea that make your prior best your new baseline. The idea, guys, the whole point here is that you want to keep raising your basement up. Don't train until you get it right. Train until you can't get it wrong. Muhammad Ali. Train so hard that you are on your worst day better than him on his best day. Steve Nurmagomedov, the GOAT, the greatest of all time of MMA. And then our code here, I create, I don't find, but I adapt and create opportunities for my current surroundings, circumstances, and resources. Guys, these are the things that we talk about constantly on our team, and how we can make sure that we build an organization, we build an infrastructure where you at your worst day are better than them on their best day. How we can make sure that our baseline, our floor policies are so strong that we can always make sure that we win. The goal is to make sure that when you follow your checklist, you're still higher than anybody else. Focus on your checklist. This is our top item here. Take away from it. Focus on non-urgent things. Focus on your checklist. A business is nothing more than a checklist. A business with a better checklist will always win, right? Okay, so focus and simplicity. Once you get there, you can move mountains. How do we get focus? Are we going to cover this? Is that on there before? I don't know if that was on there. All right, the secret to focus. Okay, so here we go. Here's some basic questions that we ask, our 10-question quiz that we use for companies. The secret to focus is to ask the right question. So here's kind of a quick little example to use that we're going to talk about here for how many of these things are you doing right now? Here's our 10-question test that we use for different businesses. So for example, how do we focus on things that are non-urgent? Remember our things, number 1, it's an asymmetrical, tiny input, massive output. Number 2, that nobody's talking about it. Number 3, nobody would notice if you didn't do it. So we have talked to at least 100,000 business owners. We ask them, do you have a list of people who would double your business? Do you have a list of 5 or 10 people who, if they said yes, if you had compliance from them, it would double your business? The answer every single time is no, they don't have one. How long would it take to create that? It would take 5 minutes, not even, to create that list. Even if you don't know the names of the people, you know their positions, right? You can make that list. And let's say you had 10 people on the list and you got in touch with them once a month over the next year. How many times would you have tried to double your business? 120 times, right? Even if you got that 1% right? Imagine if you have 2 businesses, they're equal in every way. One of them tried to do something 120 times last year. The other one didn't try at all. Who's more likely to achieve that result? Obviously the person that tried 120 times, right? So having a list of doublers is an asymmetrical. And by the way, nobody's talking about it. Nobody on your team is talking about it because it's not urgent. And if you didn't do it, nobody would notice. That's an example. Creating a list of doublers. Another one, how can we get better testimonials? We've talked about this before. I don't know how many people we have on our team now that go to realtors, especially people in real estate, help them get better testimonials, but help them use their testimonials better. Put them on a drip campaign. Take 10 of your best testimonials, go to FedEx and say, every time I give you an address, send one of these packages once a week that has a testimonial. And if you nothing else, just use your testimonials better. Take your single biggest objection that your clients have, and that should be the headline of your testimonial. So your client should look at a testimonial and the headline should be a confess and attack. I used to think it cost too much to list my house to the realtor, but then I realized ... And this is something your client should get. Or I used to think that, it was too late for me to go to school and become a certified plumber or whatever, but then I realized ... You should take your client's biggest objection, those should be headlines in your testimonial. They can say, that's what I used to think when they read your. So there's so many ways to get better testimonials. Little tiny tweaks you can do that make a huge big difference. How can we use our weekly emails better? Guys, how many people send you a weekly email that you read? How many times does that happen? It almost never happens, right? Very easy thing to do. A very small input creates a massive output. And I had just done a video about this using the weekly email they had with one of their car divisions. They'd actually grown in the first quarter. They started doing that. They grew their sales by $3 million just by using a weekly email that people actually read. It's a very simple thing, asymmetrical. Only takes 10 minutes a week and add $3 million the first quarter. How would a list of dream JV partners look like? This is such a simple idea. Ask any business, any organization, who is somebody who has clients that are exactly the people you want to be into. That'd be also a doubler, right? And how often are you in touch with them? It's like the easiest thing to do is to connect one business with another. Never happened. Who would, and by the way, again, all of these things fit that non-urgent, right? Nobody's talking about it. Nobody would notice if you didn't do it. It's asymmetric, right? So what would be the best way to triple our referrals? These are questions that we ask a lot of companies. We get ideas and we put these ideas in place. By the way, you don't have to come up with any of these answers. The answers can be from the people, from your team, or from the companies you're talking to. One of the easiest ways to extract brilliance. And then they'll think that was you that came up with these ideas. How can we improve the way we answer return calls? I used to do a training with realtors, how to double your business, how to triple your business just by how you answer the phone. It's very easy to do. We have a class on that, on how to introduce yourself. You can check it out, the exact words to use as soon as you answer the phone. What are 3 free lead generation methods that we can test? Signs is one of the easiest ways. Now with Big Ria Construction, it's going to cross over $10 million now. Thank these guys and on them have gotten over $10 million simply just by using signs. All we do when we do a house, we go into a business. Remember, every real estate investor should own a construction business. Every single one of you. It's easy to do. It's one of the highest profit. Very easy to just put out signs in front of the houses that you're buying. Anyway, free lead generation, nearly free. Can everybody list 5 things to do right after a call to follow up? Guys, this is one of the easiest. When I used to work with businesses and consult with them, this is what I used to ask. What are 3 things that should happen on every phone call? Well, we should mention our mission statement or whatever. And then I call up their salespeople in front of them on speaker and they don't do any of these things. What about after a phone call? They get a video, they get a packet, they get a chapter of a book that you're working on, they get any of these things. Very easy to fix these things in a follow-up. There should be, if you call anyone on our team, talk to them about investing in Indiana or whatever deals we have, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a video right after you talk. You're going to do an individual video about what you talked about with them. That video is going to mention the 3 to 5 things that we just emailed you and also the pack coming to you in the mail. That's a list of things that happen right after we get off the phone. There should be something that goes to the mail, something that goes to the voicemail, something that have through text, also through fax. Some people use fax. You want to have every mode of communication. After every single phone call, they get something from you in every mode of communication. What other businesses should we buy, acquire, or merge with? Doesn't matter if you actually do this, but what business should you be buying right now? That question opens up a lot of avenues. What package can we send in the mail after appointments and calls for improvements? This is one of the things we do with realtors. Send them testimonials. One of the easiest ways to double, I think you've just done this with our shipping company. One of the companies, they had taken the sales presentation. They took the best salespeople and said, right after that sales presentation, let's send them the exact same sales presentation. We don't call it that, but I'm just saying that you guys understand. Right after the meeting, if it turned out they had non-compliance, right afterwards. How many people do that? Nobody does that. Now, what if we send that and then we send testimonials once a week for the next 2 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? It's very easy to do these. All these things are free or nearly free. They're asymmetricals, right? This is an example of 10 questions you can start using with companies. Now, we're going to talk about different ways of using these questions to have even higher compliance. I don't know if that's next or we can talk about that. Okay, so the best way to start, this is a quote from BJ from the book here. The best way to start is very, very small. Okay, so this is a quote from this is from BJ Fogg this is a book from the Tiny Habits. BJ Fogg is a founder of the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University. Check this out. I remember when you said this. This is pretty interesting on how to start this process. How do we ask these questions? How do we get going? How do you start building your passive income with these questions? The best thing to do is to start with any of these new behaviors that you're going to introduce in your business or another one. To start tiny. Check this out. Tiny is mighty, at least when it comes to change. Over the last 20 years, I've found that most everyone wants to make some kind of change. Eat healthier, lose weight, exercise more, reduce stress, get better sleep. We want to be better parents and partners. We want to be more productive and creative. But the alarming levels of obesity, sleeplessness, and stress reported by the media, seen in my Stanford Labs research, tell me there's a painful gap between what people want and what they actually do. The disconnect between want and do has been blamed on a lot of things, but people blame it on themselves for the most part. Creating positive change isn't as hard as you think. If there's one concept from my book I hope you embrace, it's this. People change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. Guys, this stuff should all be an elevator for you. High frequency thinking. The essence of Tiny Habits is this. Take a behavior you want, make it tiny. Find where it fits naturally in your life and nurture its growth. If you want to create long-term change, best start small. These 10 questions I just went over are massive. These are huge things. You can build multiple companies after this. Just take one question and just take one part of one question. What's one thing? Can you list one person who would double a business? Just do that with your business or with the target business. Very, very, very small, guys. This is what we do with our heroes right now. They go through, they get these profiles done. They have one question, they get one answer. Just get one answer over the next week. Just in the next 24 hours, take one tiny step forward. Because if you do that every day, you're going to build those dominoes. We've talked about the physics of a domino. One domino takes on 150% bigger than itself. Domino 19, you should go through that principle. We did that class. This is how we build our company. You can take the same framework that we're talking about today and you can get that moving. So 3 ways to start today. Do it with your business. Do it for another business. Start by volunteering for a business. Again, this is all just by taking non-urgent questions and asking them to a business. I don't know if you're going to talk about the examples you went over. Work your way up the passive income pyramid. Okay, so how do we get to to passive income, guys, right here. This is the most important part right here. To start viral volunteering, just volunteer, do a GXM. Then you start getting paid transaction based, then you get residuals, royalties, then you have a contract position like she does with her car dealership. This is where you become either a consultant, you become on the board, you can also have a retainer, something like that. This is not that great of a deal. Being consultants or having a retainer, not that great. Being on the board is very good. And then finally, equity and dividends. This is why you're not rich, because you don't have, remember, our formula for passive income is production, equity times production. Gotta get equity, equity, control/ownership. So our whole point here is how do we move ourselves up this transaction? How do we start with volunteering, and then how do we get to equity and dividends? This is everything we ever teach, everything we do, all of our heroes. Here's just one way to add 10 to 30K passive income from today's lesson, intern model in 5 steps. Number 1 is pick, what is this? Pick one company. Guess I could have gone through this. Only the best preparation. So, this is what, so this is the intern. Okay, so this is one version of the intern model. So you screen companies, then you pick one or pick yours. So go through those 10 questions we had. And now you're going to screen companies. We have people, heroes that just go out and do the profiles. Hey, I have an assignment for school. I'm supposed to talk to a local business and see areas for opportunity or see areas that they want help with, or how they would want to get an internship. If we had an internship, what would be the best things to help them with? So then we ask them the 10 questions. You don't even go through the 10. Just go through one. Like I said, start small. Then you pick a company you want to work with. Number 2 is you use those 10 basic questions from today and you implement one of them, just one part of one of them. Do it as a GXM. Start here at the bottom of our pyramid, right? You're just going to implement one. You keep doing that until you have a set of predictable cause and a predictable result. Remember, everybody wants to make 10 grand a month, 40 grand a month, 50 grand a month, 100 grand a month. That predictable output starts with a predictable input. So once we can say this checklist, right? These 5 things, if I get in touch with these 3 doublers and I send them this package, right? I set an appointment with them. Here's how many appointments I need to set. Here's how many of those turn into transactions. Here's how I know how many I can get in touch with 10 business doublers. And in the first 90 days, we should be able to double that business. As soon as we have that, we want to get a predictable input that creates a predictable output. As soon as that happens, guys, it's game over. You want to volunteer, keep doing it for companies, local companies or your own, until you have this. So you have step 3. You have a predictable checklist that produces a predictable result. Then number 4, you repeat steps 1 and 3 until you have a solid, reliable checklist. That's like 4. This is 5 steps. It's really only like 3. It's only like 2. It's like 1 really. Just get with checklist. You get that, go through 1 through 3, screen companies, take one of the questions, put it in place until you have a predictable result. Keep doing that until you have a reliable checklist developed. Now you know how to double video game store. You know how to grow a real estate agency by 50% in the first 30 days, right? Now you know that, right? You've got that down. Just go through our other classes, by this is all we do all day. Now, number 5, this is a part that I love. This is what we're doing right now. You create an intern program with that business and you recruit a revolving team of people to execute the policies. And then you just keep repeating that. So now you go to that business, that first business that you started volunteering with, right? And you say to them, hey, this checklist is producing, is doubling your business every 6 months or whatever. How about we go and get interns come in and execute this checklist? You see what I'm saying? Now you need to get a pool of interns. We've talked about this before. I don't know if it's on here right now, but what was that? So for anyone time we have an intern model, there's 2 things we need. We need a checklist of activity and lesson. Basically, what would somebody learn if they did this? They would learn entrepreneurship skills, business skills, whatever. That's easy, right? They have but the checklist, making sure we have that predictable checklist. We know that it's going to grow that business by this much. And number 2 is we have a pool of recruits. This could be schools, universities, groups. We do this now with BigRia.com. We have a number of recruiters that come in. We know how many signs you need to put out to grow a construction business to get it to an extra 20 grand a month or 30 grand a month, for example, or get a real estate business, right? This is what we're doing. So we can say to people, Rachel and I just made a video of how we have 30 interns now. We've had 30 interns at the revolving door that are now going out and buying another 100 houses for the group, for a special needs group. So again, as long as you have your checklist, now all you need is your team. You're going to manage your team to come to your checklist, and then you go through these revolving doors. So I'm going to go to this business, a real estate place, a pool hall, a camera store, whatever. I'm going to go to that business, and now I'm going to say, hey, you saw the results that we had when I volunteered down here, right? How about I set up an internship program where we're going to have other people come in, and they're going to execute this checklist. It's not going to cost you anything, and we're going to have skills that we can show that people are going to learn. And we'll go to these places, schools, universities, groups. We'll start this internship program where people can come in, volunteer for your business. You don't pay them anything. It's an unpaid internship, and they come out and execute this checklist that I already did that you saw doubled your business or helped you grow it by whatever. You get what I'm saying? See how brilliant that is? And now, as you're helping them introduce this intern model, now you're getting paid. You're going to get transactions, then you're going to get residual royalties, then you're going to get a position. You're going to be head of the intern, whatever. That might be a contract position, but eventually you want to be up here, equity and dividend. And that's how you work your way. One way that you can use these 10 questions and the intern model to start here volunteering and move all the way up right now. I don't know. We've probably got 5 or 10 heroes. Anna's making videos about this. They're making anywhere from 10, 15, 20, 30 grand a month. Passive income, building these oil wells, doing this very thing. So how do you build this up? How do you move yourself up here? Every real estate investor should own businesses. Collect companies like a kid collecting baseball cards. Every real estate investor should own a mortgage company. Every one of you should be doing that. Every real estate investor should own a construction business, like we talked about. Very easy to do. Every real estate investor should own another company through GXMs and JVs. We've talked about this before. The single best way to find motivated sellers. I won't get into that right now. But guys, you got to go out and you got to be buying. You don't need to do anything more than the real estate stuff. But this is one simple way to take those 10 questions, start introducing this, start down here with volunteering, and get your way up to equity and dividend. my goodness gracious. Is that just brilliant or what? Is that like the most brilliant, amazing thing in the world? I don't know. Seems like that was the time stuff. Guys, that's how we go out. We use this, the secret from this by asking non-urgent questions, right? Then we do our time management correctly, use our 10 questions, introduce the intern model, start with volunteering, move your way up to equity and dividends, and create a 30K month passive income. Go to bigread.com for more stuff like this. I love you.